Hello everyone and welcome to today's free live stream. In today's class we're going to be making a chocolate cherry cookie dough bark, and this is being taken off of the viral cookie dough bark that's going around online for a while now, and we did the more simplistic version last week, the one that's really taken off online, and then I decided I wanted to do something a little bit different, make it more chocolate orientated. And use seasonal fruit. So having these lovely seasonal cherries that are around at the moment. So I thought we would do a chocolate cherry one this week. So same tools as the last one that we did. We've got a baking pan here. This is about 8 inches by 8 inches. It's quite deep. It's much deeper than what's required. It's like 3 inches deep, but that doesn't really matter too much. But you can use any pan that you want. So if you have something that's like a baking tray that's maybe a little bit bigger, it just means that your crust is going to be a little bit thicker or thinner, depending on if you're using something a little bit smaller or bigger. So you can give it a go the first time, see how it goes ratio-wise, and you can always adjust and use a different pan next time, or adjust in the moment, double the recipe, for example, if it's too thin, and you can make a double version kind of thing. But it can always be tweaked and stuff as you go along. I use cling film to line my baking pans, as long as I can get the cling film to actually come off because it's very clingy, you know what I mean? I use cling film. You can use greaseproof paper and just sort of like measure it to fit, and then you can even cut the kind of sides of the greaseproof paper, and that'll help it fit into the pan a little bit more nicely. So with cling film, I'm going to do one big long roll here. And you don't have to use square or rectangle. You can use circle. Just use whatever you have. That's the most important thing, is to actually do it, not to have what I have, or for it to look exactly like mine looks or anything like that. Most important thing is just to give it a shot. So now that we have that line, we're going to go into our ingredients. We'll pop that over to the side. I've got food processor here we're going to be using, but nothing in this recipe actually needs to be broken down. It's not like there's like nuts in it or anything like that. So you don't necessarily need to use a food processor if you don't have one. You can do it in a mixing bowl as well. So I'm just going to take the lid off. And this is all just from the one I prepped earlier. And then in here we have all of our dry ingredients. So we've got our ground almonds, which is not the same as almond flour in the UK. Almond flour in the UK is a partially defatted nut flour. In the US, there's no differentiation really between ground almonds and almond flour, but they are very different products. So the best way to know the difference between those two is to look at the fat content. So whole blanched almonds ground into flour should be around 50% fat. If it's dramatically lower than that, like 20% fat, then you've got almond flour and not ground almonds, and that's a very different end kind of texture, consistency, because you've removed fat from it. It's a lot more dry feeling. We also have cocoa powder in here, and that's 100% cocoa powder. Use whatever cocoa powder you like. I use an extra dark. It's called Extra Brut. It's by a company called Calabo here in the UK. And it's just full of flavor. It's really nice. And because of that, you don't need loads of it as well. And then I've got coconut sugar here, so we're balancing out sweeteners. In this one, we're using a little bit of maple, a little bit of coconut sugar. Because we have the cocoa powder in there, it's obviously going to be naturally more bitter. So we're adding a little bit more sweetener to this one than we would in the one we did last week. And so all of this goes into the base of our food processor, and then we're just going to pulse that up to combine. And then from here, we're going to add in our maple syrup and our coconut oil. So my coconut oil is I always use deodorized coconut oil these days, so it doesn't taste like coconut. You can use any liquid sweetener you want here, or you can increase the coconut sugar if you prefer to not use any kind of liquid sweetener, and then you're just going to need to increase your water at the end, but it's whatever, you do you. It won't make any real difference, except for obviously if you're going to use the maple syrup, it's just going to taste a little bit different, maybe a little bit more intensity from the coconut sugar than you would get from maple. And then this is coconut oil that's currently set. And I work with chocolate a lot, so I'm just going to use my heat gun to melt this down. But you'd obviously just pop this onto your stovetop, and this will melt down in a pan quite easily. With coconut oil, it is very wise to melt it at a higher temperature rather than a lower temperature for a long period of time. for example, if you took a bowl of it and put it in your dehydrator, for example, and that would melt over a longer period of time or stay melted for a longer period of time, and it can make coconut oil go rancid, and it tastes absolutely horrible. And sometimes the taste doesn't come for like a little while after, like it can be several days before you actually taste the rancidity. So I'm going to get our coconut oil in. So just quick heating on that, whether it's the stove top or however it is that you want to do it. Just a quick heat is good. And then we're going to pulse this up and then see where we are in terms of our texture. We're not adding water until we can see what's actually needed. Okay. So if we just have a look quickly at the texture, firstly, I don't know if this is with every food processor or just the ones I've used, but stuff always gets stuck under the blades, whether it's wet ingredients or dry ingredients. So I always give a good, thorough clean before moving on. Okay. And then from here, this is the only liquid in here right now is the coconut oil and the maple syrup. And so that's like sand texture right now. It's very dry. So that's not going to hold together when pressed into the pan. So we're going to do a little bit of water at a time. That was about maybe a teaspoon or two. Pulse it thoroughly, or turn it on and blend it thoroughly. Give it a good scrape around again, get under the blade. Dry stuff hides under there, wet stuff hides under there. One more pulse, and then let's have a look at the texture. So if I push it into a ball, now that holds in a ball, and when I push it, it just breaks a little bit, and I don't love that. It's going to give it a little bit less stability. So just a smidge of water is going to take us where we want to be. And then before we move on, I'm going to add just a little bit of tamari to this. I always add tamari to things that are like chocolate-based, caramel-based. Tamari is a wheat-free soy sauce, and it just brings those flavors out a little bit more. The roasted cocoa, it can make it taste more sweet, less sweet, more cocoa. It depends on the person. Everybody's going to taste it differently, but it's like a natural flavor enhancer. Okay, that should do us. So if we just have a little look, when I press that into a ball, I can feel that it's a lot more soft. That's nice, and it holds together really nicely. So let's pop that over to the side and bring over our tray with cling film. And then we're just going to get, actually, this looks like it needs another blend. There's all kinds of wet stuff under the blades here, so I'm just going to give this a mix and one more quick blend before it goes into the tray. That'll do it. Then all this goes in. Try and hit it right in the middle so it doesn't pull the cling film down on the sides. And from here, it's just the first step that I always take is evenly distributing it over the base. And then it's just about flattening it and getting it as flat as you want. And I tend to use it's nice to use the cling film to help you here so it doesn't stick to your fingers, and you can just start to press that down. And if you want to make it nice and flat without any kind of fingerprint marks or anything like that in it, because there'll just be some like little divots in it, then you can use the back of a spoon to just, gently go over it and get all the little lumps and bumps out of it. But that's totally optional, especially if you're doing this with like your kids and stuff. Maybe you want to teach them a bit of patience around like taking your time with things, or maybe you just want to give them something that they can do and be proud of regardless. Let them kind of get on with it. But that's pretty decent, like without doing much with a spoon. And that's where we're at. That's what it looks like. So I'm going to pop this over here for just a moment while we have a look at our cherries. We want to have these prepared before we pour the chocolate layer on top, because the chocolate's natural state is to be set. And so we want to make sure that once the chocolate goes on, we get the cherries on because they need to stick into the chocolate. So we'll have these done first. Sorry, I apologize for the clearing of my throat. I don't do much in the way of kitchen gadgets, but this is a cherry pitter and olive pitter. And this is the only gadget that I have that I swear by. It's fantastic to own one of these. It makes these types of jobs super easy. So we're just going to take the stones out. And I've already got some over here prepared, so I don't need to do too much of that while you're waiting for things to happen. And then I do half, I cut them in half, but you can cut them into quarters if you want, and as well, like basically whatever you want you could do here. You could put whole cherries on top if you want. And I'm just going to prepare maybe 10, 12 cherries to go on top. And when I do this, I put them in a line, like lines in the tin. But if you wanted to just sort of like, it basically just needs to touch the chocolate to stick. So you could do it any which way you want. You could cut them into quarters and kind of scatter it over the top if you wanted it to be more of like a less kind of clean line feeling thing. I'm a line person. When I garden, I do it in lines, everybody's different. Okay, now for our chocolate layer, really simple. It's just chocolate melted together with coconut oil. The coconut oil keeps it nice and soft. It gives it a really nice mouthfeel. You wouldn't want to use tempered chocolate here if you're somebody who does work with chocolate and tempering. This is not a place for that skill. This is a place where we want the chocolate to be nice and soft. It's going to be from the fridge or it's going to be from the freezer. So when you eat it, you want to be able to just bite right through it and have it be nice and soft, almost a little bit fudgy. And with tempered chocolate, what would happen is tempered chocolate, when chocolate's tempered, it contracts, it shrinks away from whatever it's in. So in this case, it would contract away from the base, and potentially when you go to break it, it would actually come apart from it. Whereas if you put the coconut oil in there and you don't temper it, what you're going to end up with is a nice cohesive slice where the chocolate doesn't try to come off the top. This is also the kind of coating you'd want to be using if you were doing things like having it on an ice cream cone or like dipping ice cream bars or whatever. Same vibe. So you literally just put your chocolate in a pan. You add about 20 grams, like let's say 10 to 20% of that in coconut oil. So if it's 100 grams of chocolate, you're going to do something like 20 grams, 10 to 20 grams of coconut oil. And you can just put it in a warm pan. The pan is warm to the point where I can hold my hand on here for about 10 seconds. And then I'm a little bit like, I want to remove my hand. And that's about as warm as it should be. It doesn't need to be, you don't want it to be super hot because you don't want to burn the chocolate. So you just want to get the pan nice and warm where you can put your hand on it for a little while and it's okay. And turn it off the heat once it gets to that stage. Mix, mix, mix. And then you can give it a little bit more heat if needed in maybe 5 minutes. If you find that there's like little lumps left, just give it a little bit more heat. And that should keep it nice and controlled and keep that temperature low while you're working. Now, notice also, I haven't put this in the fridge or the freezer in the in-between stage of melting the chocolate and doing the cherries, because if we do that, this is going to be cold. The chocolate's going to hit it. It's potentially going to set a little bit too fast for us to then get our cherries on top. We want it to go into liquid chocolate. So let's get our chocolate on now. It's looking like it's going to be plenty. And you can find the full recipe in the description. And then just swirl this around. Just be careful that the cling film doesn't pull down into the chocolate. If you're using greaseproof paper, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Cling film is just, cling film. And then start putting your cherries in however you like. I've been doing like sort of 4 across. I'm doing it in lines. You could also scatter some sea salt flakes on top, some roasted cocoa nibs, chopped nuts. Do bear in mind those are likely to go soft because this is going to be exposed to moisture, whether it's in the refrigerator or the freezer, and they might go a little bit soft. Then we've got somewhat of a gap at the bottom there. So on the one that I prepared for class, I just did like, either you can use really small cherries, got a few of those, or like cut them again, pop those in, and that's our finished one that's going to go into the refrigerator. Or you can do freezer, either way. And then maybe 20 minutes, half an hour or so, and then you've got your finished product. Doesn't take long to set at all. It will depend on the temperature that your chocolate coating was, how long it's going to take to set. And then you just pull that right out, pull the cling film or the greaseproof, going to operate in the same way, away. And from here you can just then take it off the cling film here. And grab a slightly bigger knife. And you can cut this obviously however you want. I'm going to go with bars. You could do little squares. And that's it. That's our lovely chocolate cherry slice. All sorted out in 15 minutes. Granted, I weighed the stuff out before we started, but doesn't take long at all to make this. As always, beautiful. Thank you very much. Oh, hello, Alona. Welcome. All right. Any questions before we finish up? Anything you'd like to add? Feel free. As I say, the recipe is in the description. Love to hear how you get on with this. If you like it, storing it in the freezer, airtight container to avoid, freezer burn, etc. But you can keep it in there for ages. If it was me, I would take it out 10 minutes before you're ready to eat it from the freezer. Treat it like a good quality ice cream in a similar way. Take it out, let it sit for 10 minutes. From the fridge, you can just eat it straight away. And hello, my love. Missed you so much. I know, honestly, it's been weeks. And Lynn Perry Jones, you're very welcome. I hope things are good in everybody's worlds. And that is it for today. If there's anything that you would like to see me demonstrate, videos that you'd like to see, topics you'd like discussed, anything that you'd like help with, or you saw online and you thought, I don't want to test that, but maybe Amy will do it, just send me over your ideas and I'm happy to help. So I hope you have a wonderful day and you give us a go, and I shall see you again soon. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.